She stood alone at her father's grave in the pouring rain, abandoned by the only family she had left. A black car watched from across the cemetery, photographing her every move. What she didn't know, the dead Mafia boss father she was mourning was alive, powerful, and had been protecting her from the shadows all along. The rain came down like bullets. Lila Moretti stood alone at the edge of the freshly covered grave, her mother's name carved into temporary wood until the real headstone arrived. If it ever did, Rick wasn't the type to spend money on the dead when he could barely stand them while they were alive. "You done yet?" Rick's voice cut through the downpour. He stood 20 feet back, under a black umbrella, checking his phone like he had somewhere better to be. He always did. Lila didn't answer. Her fingers traced the rain-slicked wood, feeling the grooves of her mother's name. Sarah Morettichin. Even in death, her mother couldn't escape the hyphen that tried to erase who she'd been before Rick. I said, "Are you done?" "She's been in the ground for 10 minutes, Rick. And she's not getting any less dead." He walked closer, his shoes squelching in the mud. "Come on. We need to talk." Lila turned slowly. At 17, she'd learned to read his moods the way sailors read storms. Right now, his jaw was tight, his eyes flat. This wasn't grief. This was decision. Talk about what? Rick pulled a duffel bag from behind his back and dropped it at her feet. It landed with a heavy thud, splashing mud onto her black dress. About the fact that I'm done. Her stomach dropped. Done with what?
You. This.
All of it. He gestured vaguely at the cemetery, at her, at everything. Your mother's medical bills buried us. The mortgage is 3 months behind. And I've been carrying your weight for 5 years, Lila. 5 years of feeding you, clothing you, pretending you're mine when we both know you're not. The words hit harder than she expected. She'd always known Rick tolerated her at best, but hearing it out loud, here, now, it carved something out of her chest. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem anymore. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and tossed it onto the bag. There's $200 in there. Bus money, maybe a week in a motel if you're smart. After that. He shrugged. Figure it out. You're almost 18 anyway. Lila stared at the envelope, rain soaking through the paper. You're leaving me here? At a cemetery? Fitting, don't you think? Rick's smile was cruel. Your real father's buried right over there. He pointed to a grave 30 feet away, overgrown with weeds, the headstone cracked and gray. Dante Moretti, dead 11 years. Maybe you can ask him for help. She'd visited that grave exactly once, when she was 6. Her mother had cried the entire time, then never spoke of him again. All Lila knew was that Dante Moretti had died in a car accident when she was 6 months old, leaving behind debts, enemies, and a daughter he'd never meet. You're a coward, Lila said quietly. Rick laughed. It was a sharp, brittle sound. I'm a survivor, kid. Something you're about to learn real quick. He turned and walked toward his truck, parked on the gravel path. Oh, and Lila? Don't come looking for me. I see you again. I'm calling the cops. Trespassing, harassment, whatever sticks. She wanted to scream, to run after him, to beg. But pride and fury pinned her in place, rooted to the mud beside her mother's grave. So she just stood there, watching Rick's taillights disappear into the gray Boston evening. The rain intensified. Lila grabbed the duffel bag, heavier than expected, and slung it over her shoulder. Inside the envelope, she found exactly $200 in 20s and a handwritten note. Your father's debts aren't my problem. They're not yours either. Forget the name Moretti. It only brings pain. She crumpled the note and let it fall into a puddle. Then she did something stupid. She walked to her father's grave. The headstone was barely readable through the moss and grime. Dante Moretti, 1985 to 2014, beloved father. No mention of being a beloved husband. Her mother had made sure of that. Lila knelt in the mud, anger bubbling up into her throat. Thanks for nothing, she whispered. You died, and left us with vultures. Mom worked herself to death trying to fix your mistakes, and now I'm. Her voice cracked. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not for a man she never knew. But as she stood to leave, something caught her eye. On the headstone's base, barely visible under the dirt, was a symbol she'd seen before. A small engraving of a lion with a crown, circled by thorns. She'd seen it on something her mother kept hidden in a shoebox, a man's pocket watch, old and silver, with the same symbol on the back. Her mother had caught Lila looking at it once, and snatched it away, eyes wild with fear. Never touch this again. Never tell anyone about it. Promise me, Lila. Lila had promised. And after her mother got sick, the watch disappeared. Thunder cracked overhead, violent and close. That's when she noticed the car. A sleek black sedan, parked across the cemetery road, engine idling. The windows were tinted, but she could see the silhouette of a man in the driver's seat, watching. Her pulse quickened. How long had he been there? The man lifted something, a camera, maybe, or a phone, and pointed it toward her. A flash of red light. Then the car's engine revved, and it pulled away slowly, deliberately, like the driver wanted her to know she'd been seen. Lila's breath came faster. She clutched the duffel bag tighter and started walking toward the cemetery gates, her mind racing. Who was that? Why photograph her? Was it one of Rick's friends? Debt collectors? Or something worse? By the time she reached the road, the black sedan was gone. But the feeling of being watched lingered, crawling up her spine like ice. She pulled her phone from her pocket, screen cracked, battery at 12%, and opened her only real lifeline, a text thread with Evan Chen, her ex-boyfriend's cousin, and the closest thing she had to a friend. I need help. Rick left me. I have nowhere to go. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, my couch is yours. Always. Send me your location. Lila exhaled, something tight in her chest loosening just slightly. But as she waited for Evan's car, she couldn't stop thinking about the man in the black sedan. And the symbol on her father's grave. 2 weeks felt like 2 years. Evan's couch had lasted exactly 4 days before his aunt found out and threatened to call social services. Nothing personal, Evan had said, stuffing cash into her hand. But she's paranoid about anything that looks like trouble. Lila didn't blame her. She was trouble. The kind that came with dead parents and no forwarding address. Now she lived in the margins. A diner on Tremont Street let her wash dishes for $40 a night, cash. She slept in a women's shelter near Chinatown when they had space, which wasn't often. Other nights, she curled up in subway stations, the orange line's fluorescent hum keeping the nightmares at bay. Her duffel bag became her world. 2 changes of clothes. A toothbrush. The $200, now down to $73. And buried at the bottom, wrapped in an old t-shirt, the one thing she'd stolen from Rick's house before he changed the locks, her father's pocket watch. She'd gone back 3 days after the funeral, climbed through her bedroom window, and found it in Rick's office drawer. He must have taken it from her mother's things. Probably thought it was worthless. It wasn't. The watch was silver, tarnished but solid. On the back, engraved in elegant script, D. M. Il Leone non dimentica. The lion does not forget. And beneath it, that same symbol from the grave, the crowned lion circled by thorns. Lila had stared at it for hours, turning it over in her hands, feeling the weight of something she didn't understand. You're obsessed with that thing. She looked up. Evan slid into the booth across from her, 2 coffees in hand. The diner was mostly empty at 2 a.m., just her and the night shift regulars who didn't ask questions. It was my father's, Lila said, pocketing the watch quickly. Evan pushed a coffee toward her. Black, 2 sugars, the way she liked it. He was 19, skinny, with perpetually messy hair and the kind of face that made people underestimate him. That was their mistake. Evan Chin could hack a bank's firewall before most people finished their morning coffee. You said he died when you were a baby, right? 6 months old.
Car accident.
Evan nodded slowly, pulling out his laptop. And you've never wondered about him? About who he really was? My mom didn't like talking about it. Said he was complicated. Complicated how? Lila hesitated. She said he made bad choices. Got involved with dangerous people. That's why she changed her name after he died. Added Rick's last name to mine. She wanted to erase him. But you kept his watch. She kept it, Lila corrected.
Hidden.
Like it meant something. Evan's fingers flew across the keyboard. Let me see it again. She slid the watch across the table. Evan examined it under the diner's harsh lighting, squinting at the engraving. Dante Moretti, right? Yeah. And this phrase.
Il leone non dimentica I typed rapidly.
Italian. The lion does not forget sounds like a family motto or something. Or just something poetic, Lila said. My mom said he was dramatic. Evan wasn't listening. His eyes had gone wide, locked on a screen. Holy shit, what? He turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was a financial database, the kind that definitely wasn't legal to access, showing a series of offshore accounts. At the top of one transaction history, she saw it. Moretti Imports Limited. This company's been moving money for 11 years, Evan said, his voice low.
Milio.
Through the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore. It's a shell corporation, obviously, but look at the transaction dates. Lila leaned closer. The most recent transfer was dated 3 days ago. That's impossible. My father's been dead for 11 years. I know. Evan pulled up another window. But companies don't move money by themselves, Lila. Someone's running this. And look at the signature on the incorporation documents. He zoomed in on a scanned image and Lila's breath caught. The signature was illegible, but stamped next to it was a corporate seal, a crowned lion circled by thorns. Evan, what does this mean? He closed the laptop carefully, his expression serious. It means either someone's using your dead father's identity for money laundering, or he paused. Or your father's not as dead as everyone thinks. The words hung in the air like smoke. Lila's hands trembled as she picked up the watch again.
Il leone non dimentica.
The lion does not forget. There's more, Evan said quietly. The company's headquarters is listed in Naples, Italy. But there are subsidiary addresses in New York, Boston, and, he hesitated, a nightclub in Manhattan. Place called Palazzo Nero. Rumored to be owned by retired Italian businessmen, he made air quotes. Which is code for Mafia, Lila finished. Evan nodded. If you want answers, that's where you start. But Lila. His eyes were worried. If your father's really alive and running something like this, finding him might be the most dangerous thing you ever do. She thought about Rick's face as he drove away. The black sedan watching her at the cemetery. The feeling that her whole life had been built on lies. Good, she said. I've got nothing left to lose. The bus to New York cost $32 and smelled like desperation. Lila watched Boston disappear through the grimy window, her duffel bag clutched against her chest. Evan had tried to talk her out of going. At least let me dig deeper first, he'd pleaded. Going to a Mafia nightclub alone is insane. Maybe it was. But sitting still felt more dangerous than moving forward. Palazzo Nero sat in Tribeca, wedged between luxury condos and art galleries like it belonged there. From the outside, it looked elegant. Black marble facade, velvet ropes, a doorman in an expensive suit who looked like he could bench press a car. Lila waited across the street for 2 hours, watching. Women in designer dresses and men in tailored suits filtered in and out. Luxury cars pulled up, Maseratis, Bentleys. One actual Rolls-Royce. This wasn't just a nightclub. This was a fortress disguised as entertainment. Her phone buzzed. Evan. Security cameras everywhere. Facial recognition at the door. You can't just walk in. She texted back. Watch me. The trick was confidence. Lila had learned that washing dishes, if you moved like you belonged somewhere, people rarely questioned it. She waited until a group of laughing women approached the entrance, then slipped in behind them, keeping her head down, her cheap jacket hidden under her arms. The doorman's hand shot out. Invitation? I'm with them, Lila gestured vaguely at the women, who were already inside. Name? Her mind raced. Sophia.
Sofia Romano.
I'm late. They're going to kill me. The doorman consulted his tablet, frowning. Lila's heart hammered. This was stupid. She should run. Then a voice behind her spoke in smooth Italian. Let her through, Carlo. She's expected. Lila turned. A man stood there, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Rick's truck. His eyes were dark and assessing, taking her in with the efficiency of someone trained to spot threats. Signore Marco, the doorman said, stepping aside immediately. Of course. Marco gestured for Lila to enter. After you, Signorina. She had no choice. Walking away now would draw more attention than going in. So she stepped through the doors into a world that didn't belong in her life. Inside, Palazzo Nero was all black marble, gold fixtures and crystal chandeliers. The music was low and sultry, the kind that made secrets feel safe. Private booths lined the walls, filled with people who looked like they bought senators for breakfast. Marco guided her toward the back, his hand never quite touching her, but always there, controlling. The coat check is this way, he said pleasantly. You look cold.
Ai fine.
I insist his smile didn't reach his eyes. They passed the bar, the dance floor, moving deeper into the club. Lila's instincts screamed at her to bolt, but Marco's presence behind her felt like a locked door. Finally, they reached a hallway marked private, staff only. I think there's been a mistake, Lila said, stopping. I should. Should what? Marco's voice lost its pleasant edge. Break into a private establishment? Ask questions about Moretti imports? Did you think we wouldn't notice? Her blood turned to ice. I don't know what you're. The watch, he said simply. On your wrist. Let me see it. Lila's hand instinctively covered her father's watch, the silver chain visible beneath her sleeve. She'd worn it every day since finding it, unable to let it go. Marco didn't move closer, but his voice hardened. You can show me willingly, or my associates can retrieve it. Your choice. Two men materialized from the shadows, large, silent, professional. Not bouncers. Soldiers. Slowly, Lila unclasped the watch and held it out. Marco took it gently, almost reverently, and examined the engraving in the dim light. His expression shifted surprise, then something like recognition. Il Leone non dimentica, he read aloud. Then, to her shock, he laughed. It was a low, almost sad sound.
Dio mio.
It's really you. What? Marco looked at her closely now, studying her face. The eyes. You have his eyes. How did I not see it immediately? He pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking rapid Italian. Lila caught only fragments. La figlia.
Sì, viva. Il segno è autentico.
The daughter. Yes, alive. The symbol is authentic. When he hung up, Marco's entire demeanor had changed. Signorina Moretti.
You need to come with me. Now.
I'm not going anywhere until you tell me. Your father, Marco interrupted, his voice urgent, is alive. And right now, you being here, wearing that watch in public, has just painted a target on your back the size of Manhattan. He grabbed her arm, not roughly but firmly. There are people in this very building who would kill you to hurt him. So, unless you want to die in the next 5 minutes, move. Fear shot through her. My father's alive.
Very.
And he's going to be furious with me for letting you get this close. Marco was already pulling her toward a back exit. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. Behind them, she heard shouting. The sound of chairs scraping. Someone had noticed. Marco cursed in Italian and started running, dragging Lila with him. Welcome to the family business, Signorina. Try not to get killed on your first day. The private jet was nicer than any place Lila had ever lived. Cream leather seats, a full bar, windows that overlooked clouds lit gold by sunrise. Marco sat across from her, phone pressed his ear, speaking Italian too quickly for her to follow. He'd been on calls for 6 straight hours, ever since they'd escaped through Palazzo Nero's kitchen and driven straight to a private airfield in Jersey. Lila hadn't slept.
Couldn't.
Her mind kept circling the same impossible thought. Your father is alive. We land in 40 minutes, Marco said, finally hanging up. He looked exhausted. You should eat something. I want answers. And you'll get them. From him, Marco poured himself whiskey despite the early hour. I've worked for your father for 15 years. In all that time, I've never seen him lose his composure. Until I called him last night, he took a long drink. He thought you were unreachable. Safe. Safe. Lila's laugh was bitter. I've been homeless for 2 weeks. Marco's jaw tightened. We didn't know. Your stepfather, Rick Chin, he made sure of that. Changed your last name legally, moved 3 times, kept you off social media. Your father had people checking periodically, but from a distance. He couldn't risk getting too close. Not with Salvatore still hunting him. Who's Salvatore? The man who tried to kill your entire family. Marco's voice went flat. The reason your father had to die. The plane began its descent into Naples. The Moretti estate clung to a hillside overlooking the Mediterranean, all white stone and terracotta roofs. It looked like a postcard. Armed guards at the gates ruined the illusion. They drove through in silence. Lila pressed her face to the window, watching servants tend gardens, men in suits talk on phones, a world operating on rules she didn't understand. He's waiting in the study, Marco said as they entered through massive wooden doors. Try not to judge him too quickly. He let me think he was dead for 17 years. He let you live, Marco corrected quietly. A woman in her 50s appeared, silver hair, kind eyes, wearing an apron.
Benvenuta, cara.
You must be starving. She spoke English with a thick accent.
I've rosa.
I'll bring food. I'm not. You'll eat, Marco said firmly. Trust me. You'll need your strength. He led her through corridors lined with oil paintings. Ancestors, probably. All with the same dark eyes she saw in her mirror. They stopped at a door of carved oak. Marco knocked twice, then opened it.
Buongiorno, capo.
Your daughter is here. Lila's breath caught. The man standing by the window turned slowly, and time folded in on itself. She'd seen photos, old ones, hidden in her mother's things. But photos couldn't capture presence. Dante Moretti was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair touched with gray at the temples. He wore slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and when his eyes met hers, Lila felt like she'd been struck by lightning. Those were her eyes. Same shape. Same unusual shade of dark amber. Lila, he said, and his voice cracked on her name. She couldn't move.
Couldn't speak.
All the anger she'd prepared, all the accusations, they died in her throat because standing in front of her was a ghost who looked like home. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped just short of touching her, his hands shaking.
Mi dispiace.
I'm so sorry. For everything. His voice broke entirely. Dio, you look so much like her. Like who? Lila whispered. Your mother. Tears slid down his face, unashamed. I loved her more than life itself. Leaving her, leaving you, it destroyed me. But Salvatore would have butchered you both if I'd stayed. I had no choice. The dam inside Lila burst. You had 11 years. 11 years to tell me you were alive. And risk them finding you? Dante's voice rose, desperate. Salvatore had informants everywhere, police, hospitals, schools. One slip, one trace back to you, and he would have used you to torture me, then killed you anyway. So I died. Disappeared. Rebuilt everything from nothing, and every single day I wanted to reach out, to see you, to... He pressed his palms against his eyes. Your mother understood. She knew it was the only way. She died thinking you were dead. No, Dante lowered his hands. She knew. I sent one letter 5 years ago, through someone we both trusted. I told her I was alive, that I was still protecting you both from a distance. She wrote back once. Just once, he pulled a worn envelope from his desk drawer. She said you were brilliant.
Stubborn.
That you had my temper and her heart. And she begged me never to contact you directly, to let you live a normal life. Lila's hands trembled as she took the envelope. Her mother's handwriting on the front. For Dante, final words. I honored her wishes, Dante said quietly. Until Rick abandoned you at that cemetery. Marco had a man watching just routine surveillance. When he sent me the photo of you standing at your mother's grave, alone, in the rain, his voice turned to steel. Rick signed his death warrant that night. Lila looked up sharply. What? No one abandons a Moretti, Dante said simply. Family is everything. And you, Lila, are all I have left. Lila spent 3 days in a fog of luxury and confusion. The estate had 12 bedrooms. Hers overlooked the sea, with a balcony where lemon trees grew in terracotta pots. Rosa brought her clothes that actually fit, expensive things with Italian labels. Men in suits nodded respectfully when she passed. It felt like being dropped into someone else's life. Dante gave her space, but she felt his presence everywhere. The way guard straightened when he walked by. The hushed phone calls in rapid Italian. The meetings behind closed doors that lasted until dawn. On the 4th morning, she found him in the library, surrounded by maps and documents. You don't sleep much, Lila said from the doorway. He looked up, managing a tired smile. Neither do you. I hear you walking the halls at 3 a.m. Hard to sleep when your whole life turns out to be a lie. Dante winced. Fair. He gestured to the chair across from him.
Seat. Please.
There are things you need to understand. Lila sat, eyeing the documents. They looked official, ledgers, photographs, what appeared to be surveillance reports. What is all this? The truth about what happened. About why I had to disappear. Dante slid a photograph across the desk. A man in his 50s, handsome in a cruel way, with cold eyes and a politician's smile.
Salvatore Russo.
My former second-in-command. My best friend, once. The one who betrayed you. He did more than betray me, Dante's voice went hard. 11 years ago, I was trying to go legitimate. Move our operations into legal businesses, imports, real estate, restaurants. Salvatore wanted to expand into drugs, weapons trafficking. We fought about it for months. Then one night, he made his move. He pulled out another photo. A burned-out car, twisted metal, emergency lights. He staged my death, a car bomb meant for me. I survived because I'd suspected something and sent a decoy. But your mother was supposed to be in that car too. She was running late. Thank God. 20 minutes later, you'd both be dead. Lila's stomach turned. So you ran. I had 2 choices, stay and watch him kill everyone I loved, or disappear and let him think he'd won. I chose you and your mother, Dante's eyes glistened. Salvatore took over my operations, expanded exactly like he wanted. Built an empire on blood. And for 11 years, I've been in exile, rebuilding slowly, waiting for the right moment. To do what? To take back what's mine. And to destroy him. The door burst open. Marco rushed in, face pale. We have a problem. Turn on the news, CNN International. Dante grabbed a remote. The television flickered to life, showing a breaking news banner. Boston businessman found dead in apparent suicide. Lila's breath stopped. Rick's face filled the screen. The reporter's voice echoed. Richard Chun, 52, was found in his Boston apartment early this morning. Police say there were no signs of foul play, but the investigation is ongoing. Oh my God, Lila whispered. That wasn't us, Marco said quickly. We were watching him, but we didn't. Salvatore. Dante interrupted, his voice ice. He knows. Knows what? Lila demanded. Marco and Dante exchanged looks. About you, Marco said finally. When you came to Palazzo Nero when I made that call, someone must have been listening. Salvatore has people in New York. If they reported back that Dante Moretti's daughter surfaced, Rick becomes a loose end, Dante finished. Someone who knew about you, about your mother, about the connection. Salvatore would want him silenced. The room tilted. You're saying he was killed because of me? No, Dante's voice was firm. Because of Salvatore's paranoia. This is what he does, eliminate anyone who might be leverage or information. Lila's phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Lila, where are you? Police came to my apartment asking about you and Rick. They think you might be involved. Call me now. Her hands shook. The police think I killed him. Of course they do, Marco said grimly. Salvatore's good at making things look convenient. Stepdaughter with motive, recent abandonment, disappears right before stepfather dies? You're the perfect suspect. Dante stood abruptly, knocking his chair back. Marco, I want security tripled. No one in or out without my approval. And find out who in New York has been talking. Already on it. Wait, Lila said, her voice rising. What does Salvatore want? Why does he care about me? Dante turned to her, and for the first time she saw real fear in his eyes. Because in our world, family is everything. You're not just my daughter, Lila. You're proof I'm alive. Proof I've been operating in the shadows. And worst of all, he paused. You're leverage. He'll try to take you, use you against me, force me into the open. Then send me back, Lila said desperately. Let me disappear again. I'll change my name, It's too late. Marco pulled up something on his tablet, showing her a screenshot from a dark web forum. Her photo, the one taken at the cemetery, with text in Italian below. This was posted 2 hours ago. Every syndicate from here to New York knows who you are now. Salvatore's put a price on your head. 5 million euros. The number didn't feel real. Not to kill you, Dante added quietly. To deliver you to him alive. Your bait, Lila. And the trap has already been set. The training started at dawn. Lila woke to Marco pounding on her door.
Up. Now.
The gym. 5 minutes. She stumbled downstairs and borrowed athletic clothes to find Dante already there, wrapping his hands in boxing tape. The estate's gym was pristine, weights, mats, punching bags, and enough weapons mounted on the walls to start a small war. I'm not learning to kill people, Lila said flatly. Good. I'm not teaching you that. Dante tossed her a roll of tape. I'm teaching you not to be a victim. There's a difference. For 2 weeks, her world became discipline and motion. Dante taught her to punch properly, to use an attacker's weight against them, to recognize exits in every room. Marco drilled her on situational awareness. Who's watching? What's wrong with this picture? When to run versus when to fight. You're not trying to win, Marco explained after she'd been thrown to the mat for the 10th time. You're trying to survive long enough for help to arrive. Big difference. At night, Dante joined her for dinner on the terrace. Their conversations were careful at first, circling around 17 years of absence. But slowly, painfully, they learned each other. Your mother was the brave one, Dante said one evening, wineglass in hand. People think men like me are fearless. We're not. We just hide it better. But Sarah? She looked at me, a man with blood on his hands, and saw something worth saving. Did she save you? Lila asked. She tried. His smile was sad. For a while, she succeeded. Lila pulled out her phone, showing him photos she'd saved, her mother at her high school graduation, at a rare, happy moment with Rick, smiling despite the cancer eating her from the inside. Dante studied each one like scripture, memorizing what he'd missed. She loved you, Lila said quietly. Even after everything. She kept your watch like it was sacred. The watch was my father's. And his father's before that. Dante touched the silver chain around her wrist. Every Moretti heir carries it. Il leone non dimentica. The lion does not forget. It means we protect our own. Always. Even when it costs everything. Especially then. On day 16, Evan finally broke through the estate's security protocols with a video call.
Jesus Christ, Lila.
His face filled her laptop screen, equal parts relief and fury. I've been going insane. The cops questioned me 3 times about Rick. Your face is all over the news. Where the hell are you? Italy.
It's
complicated. Complicated? They think you murdered your stepfather. I didn't. But I know who did. She lowered her voice. Evan, I need your help. Can you dig into Rick's finances? Specifically anything connecting him to someone named Salvatore Russo. Evan's fingers were already flying across his keyboard.
Russo. Wait. Salvatore Russo?
As in the Russo crime family? You know him? Know of him. He's practically a myth in certain forums, runs half the East Coast's underground economy. Money laundering, contract killings, political blackmail. He's untouchable because he's got connections everywhere. Evan's eyes widened. Lila, what have you gotten into? The family business, she said dryly. Can you trace Rick's accounts or not? Give me an hour. 40 minutes later, Evan called back. His face was pale. You need to see this. He shared his screen. Bank records, wire transfers, emails, a digital paper trail showing Rick receiving monthly payments from a shell corporation for 5 years. The amounts escalated over time, culminating in a final transfer of $50,000 3 weeks ago. What was he being paid for? Lila asked. Information. Look at the email timestamps. They match up with times your mom had doctor's appointments, when you changed schools, even your work schedule at the diner. Rick was selling details about your life. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. He was spying on us.
Worse.
According to these messages, he was supposed to keep you isolated and traceable. Make sure you stayed in Boston. He wasn't just greedy. He was actively working for Russo. Evan's voice turned grim. The last email is dated 3 days before he dumped you at the cemetery. Russo told him to dispose of the asset. I think Rick got scared and ran. So Russo killed him for disobeying. Looks like it. But Lila, there's more. I cross-referenced the payment sources with other accounts, and he hesitated. Russo's been moving huge amounts of money recently. Buying weapons, calling in favors, hiring contractors.
It's not just about you.
He's preparing for something big. Lila found Dante in his study, showed him everything Evan had uncovered. His expression darkened with each revelation. He's coming, Dante said finally. Not just for you.
For me.
For everything. Salvatore knows I've been rebuilding, and now that you've given him the excuse, he's going to make his move. Then we make ours first, Lila said. Dante looked at her. Really looked, and something shifted in his expression. Pride, maybe. Recognition. You sound like a Moretti. I am a Moretti. She met his eyes steadily. And it's time we reminded everyone what that means. Marco appeared in the doorway. Capo, we've got intel. Salvatore's in Sicily. His fortress outside Palermo. Dante smiled slowly. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Then let's bring the lion to his door. The plan was chess, not war. We don't storm his fortress like idiots in a movie, Dante explained, spreading blueprints across the table. We dismantle him piece by piece until there's nothing left to storm. Lila leaned over the maps of Sicily, studying Salvatore's compound, a converted monastery on a cliff, surrounded by walls and armed guards.
How?
3 fronts, Dante pointed to different documents. Financial, tactical, and psychological. We hit all of them simultaneously. Make him paranoid. Make him desperate. Force him to make mistakes. Marco added, and we use his greatest weakness. He thinks he's already won. The operation took 6 days of preparation. Evan worked remotely from Boston, his fingers dancing across keyboards, building the digital trap. Dante called in favors from people who still remembered what the Moretti name meant. Marco coordinated with soldiers who'd been waiting years for this moment. And Lila? She became the bait. This is insane, she said when Dante explained her role. It's necessary, his voice was firm. Salvatore wants you. So, we give him a chance to take you on our terms. Day 1. Financial collapse. Evans struck first. At 3 a.m. Eastern Time, he unleashed a virus into Salvatore's financial networks. Nothing destructive, just revealing. Every shell corporation, every laundered transaction, every bribed official suddenly became visible to the right people. By morning, 3 of Salvatore's banks had frozen his accounts pending investigation. 2 politicians he owned publicly distanced themselves. The SEC opened an inquiry into Russo Enterprises. Beautiful, Dante said, watching the news. He's bleeding money and credibility. Now he'll get angry. Day 2. Tactical disruption. Marco's team moved next. A weapons shipment from Ukraine, destined for Salvatore's arsenal, mysteriously disappeared in transit. A warehouse in Palermo caught fire, no casualties, but millions in inventory lost. 3 of Salvatore's top enforcers were arrested in coordinated raids across Italy. Nothing traceable back to the Morettis. Just bad luck. Terrible coincidences. Dante's phone rang constantly, old allies offering support, neutral parties suddenly willing to talk. The underworld was watching, sensing blood in the water. "He'll know it's you," Lila said. "That's the point. I want him furious." Furious men make mistakes. Day 3. The psychological game. This was Lila's part. Evan created a fake social media account, just credible enough to seem real, just sloppy enough to be found. Photos of Lila in Naples, walking the streets, visiting cafes. Each image geotagged, each post timed perfectly. The message was clear. Dante's daughter is here, unprotected, careless. "He'll send someone," Marco warned. "They'll try to grab you." "Let them try," Lila said, surprising herself with how calm she sounded. The attempt came at an outdoor market near the Spanish Quarter. 2 men, professional and fast, moving toward her through the crowd. Lila saw them coming, Marco's training kicking in, and did exactly what they'd rehearsed. She ran. Not frantically, but deliberately, leading them through narrow streets toward a predetermined location. The men followed, confident, probably thinking she was panicking. They turned a corner into an empty piazza. Marco's team was waiting. It was over in seconds. The men were disarmed, zip-tied, and loaded into a van before they could call for help. One of them had a phone with an open line to Sicily. Salvatore had been listening the entire time. Marco picked up the phone. "Tell your boss the Moretti family sends their regards." He crushed it under his heel. Day 5. The siege without violence. By now, Salvatore's empire was hemorrhaging. His allies abandoned him. His accounts were frozen. His weapons suppliers refused his calls. The Italian authorities, suddenly very interested in his activities, had agents watching his compound around the clock. Dante didn't need to fire a single shot. He'd simply exposed Salvatore to the same legal systems the man had spent decades bribing and manipulating. "He has 2 choices," Dante said that evening. "Surrender to the authorities or run." "He'll run," Marco predicted. Men like him always do. They were right. Day 6. Confrontation. The call came at midnight. A burner number, Salvatore's voice tight with rage. "You destroyed everything I built." "No," Dante replied calmly, putting the phone on speaker so Lila could hear. "I reclaimed what you stole. There's a difference. I should have killed that little bitch when I had the chance." Lila's blood turned cold, but Dante's voice never wavered. "You failed. Again. Just like you failed 11 years ago when you tried to kill me. You're not a king, Salvatore. You're a parasite who got fat on my empire." Silence. "Then, this isn't over." "Yes, it is. You have 24 hours to leave Italy. After that, I stop being merciful." Dante's voice dropped to something dangerous. "And Salvatore? You come near my daughter again, you even think about her, and I'll finish what should have ended a decade ago." The line went dead.
Marco exhaled.
"He'll try something desperate. He always does." "I know," Dante said quietly. "That's what I'm counting on." Lila felt something shift inside her. Fear, yes, but also something else. Power. Purpose. The understanding that she wasn't just her father's daughter. She was a Moretti. And the lion had teeth. The morning felt different. Lila stood on the terrace watching the sun climb over the Mediterranean, painting the water in shades of gold and rose. 3 months had passed since Salvatore fled Italy, vanished into the shadows he'd once commanded. Interpol was hunting him. So were former allies he'd betrayed. Either way, his empire was ash. Couldn't sleep? Dante appeared beside her, 2 espresso cups in hand. He'd aged somehow in the past months, or maybe she was just seeing him clearly for the first time. The gray at his temples had spread. New lines marked his face. Bad dreams, she admitted, taking the coffee. The same one. I'm back at the cemetery in the rain, and Rick's driving away, and I can't move. Trauma doesn't disappear just because the danger does. Dante's voice was gentle. Your mother used to have nightmares too, about the car bomb that almost killed her. Even years later. They stood in comfortable silence. This was new, the ease between them. It had taken months of difficult conversations, of her pushing him away and him patiently staying close, of learning that love could exist alongside anger. I spoke to the Boston police yesterday, Lila said. They're closing Rick's case. Ruled it a mob hit, no viable suspects.
I'm officially cleared.
And how do you feel about that?
Relieved. Guilty.
Confused, she turned to face him. He sold me out for money.
He abandoned me.
But he also fed me for 5 years. Drove me to school. Sometimes he was almost decent when Mom was watching. People are complicated, Dante said. That's the hardest lesson. Salvatore was my best friend once. I trusted him with my life. And Rick, he was weak and greedy, but he also kept you alive when it would have been easier to turn you over. You think that was intentional? I think even weak men have moments of conscience. Maybe at the end, dumping you at that cemetery was the closest thing to mercy he could manage. Dante's expression darkened. Salvatore killed him anyway. That's the difference between us and them. We remember mercy. They only understand power. A phone buzzed. Marco appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Boss, you need to see this. The news article was brief. Salvatore Russo found dead in Bogot. Apparent heart attack. Lila's stomach dropped. Did you? No, Dante said firmly. I told you, I was done with that life. But Salvatore had enemies everywhere. Eventually, one of them caught up. He handed the tablet back to Marco. Make sure his family receives a proper burial allowance. Anonymously. Marco raised an eyebrow but nodded. As you wish. When they were alone again, Lila asked, why would you pay for his funeral? Because I'm not him. And because his children, regardless of what their father did, deserve to mourn. Dante's eyes met hers. Breaking cycles means choosing differently, even when it's hard. Later that afternoon, they drove to Boston. The cemetery looked smaller than Lila remembered. Less ominous. The rain had stopped weeks ago, leaving everything green and alive. Her mother's grave had a proper headstone now, white marble, elegant, with fresh flowers in the vase. You've been maintaining it, Lila said, surprised. Every week. Rosa handles it when I can't come personally. Dante knelt, touching the stone gently. I owe her that much. She saved my life by loving me when I didn't deserve it. They stood together in silence, two people learning how to be family. Finally, Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver watch, polished now, the mechanism repaired, ticking steadily. This belongs to you, he said, offering it to her. Officially. You're the heir now, Lila. Everything I've built, everything I'm building, it's yours when I'm gone. Lila stared at the watch, feeling its weight, its history.
Il leone non dimentica.
The lion does not forget. She closed his fingers around it. Keep it. For now. Lila. I know who I am now, she interrupted. I don't need a watch to remind me. I'm Sarah Chen's daughter. I'm Dante Moretti's daughter. I'm Lila, she smiled slightly. That's enough. Dante's eyes shimmered with tears he didn't bother hiding. He pulled her into a fierce hug, and for the first time in 17 years, Lila felt completely safe. When they finally pulled apart, she noticed a black sedan parked across the cemetery road. The same position as months ago. Marco sat in the driver's seat, patient and watchful. He's always there, isn't he? Lila said. Watching. Protecting. Always, Dante confirmed. That's what family does. We protect our own. He took her hand. The empire I'm building now is different. Legitimate businesses, clean money. I want to give you choices I never had. What if I choose to help you build it? Lila asked. On my terms. My way. Dante studied her, his daughter, his legacy, his second chance. Then he smiled, genuine and warm. Then I'd say the Moretti family finally has a future worth believing in. They walked toward the car together, leaving the graves behind. Marco started the engine as they approached, falling into formation. Protector, father, daughter. A family forged from loss and pain, rebuilt on truth. The lion had remembered. And this time, he wasn't alone.
The end.